It's Mundy on Monday, where I am long on thoughts but short on time. Hope. We all have it. It is fundamental to life. We cannot live without it. But due to its weak connotations in our English vernacular, we often overlook the power of hope. But lest we forget the nature and the power of hope, AMC's The Terror lays out not only our need for it to survive and possibly thrive, but also the deadly nature of it when we hope in that which is already dead, indifferent to us, or just too small to save us. So how does AMC's The Terror give us a glimpse into the quiet power of hope? Let's take a look. First, this is not a happy story. Oh, and although there may not be plot-driven spoilers, there are thematic-driven ones. But then again, if you've just seen a trailer, you probably have an idea of where it's headed. And then again, it's history, so, spoiler alert, the Titanic sank. And Rose, there was room. Come with me. The Terror. It is atmospheric and haunting. A Kubrick visual isolation edifice frozen onto Dr. Frankenstein's runaway guilt. This is the definition of a waking nightmare. Our exhausted sleep, worn as an albatross where the constant paddling in an ice-filled bath refuses to let us slumber. And this story bravely takes its time to great effect. So, hope and terror. All the declared Argonauts on the vessels, the Erebus and the Terror, are purposefully hidden under identical uniforms, a visual tactic to keep chaos at bay. Yet as the desperation of the story unfolds, a visual horror begins to emerge. As each character becomes more fully fleshed out and well-rounded, the threads of their disguises, both external and internal, rot and tear and ultimately fall away, leaving us to watch exposed men carrying nothing but their gaunt flesh and that into which they had put their hope, if they have any left. Thusly stripped, they end up wearing and then ultimately becoming that hope. It is in this gradual descent we see them one by one driven to the precipice of the abyss of chaos and stare at the consequences of that into which they had put their hope, or that into which they had now become. Those who had put their hope in themselves were faced with their smallness. Those who had put their hope in the Empire were faced with their betrayal. Those who had put their hope in their glory were faced with their treachery. And those who had lost their hope, no matter what it was, were already dead. The late neurologist, psychiatrist, and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl talked about looking into the eyes of those around him in the camps. And those eyes where no hope existed usually didn't wake up the next morning. The story of the Terror continues to reveal a few things here then. First, that those, when they lost hope, were already gone. And second, even if they kept it, as they became weaker and weaker, it didn't matter the strength of their hope, resolve, belief. If they put their hope in that which either didn't care about or for them, or was too small to save them, they were left at the precipice of the abyss of chaos as personified loneliness and terror, now only clothed in the chains of despair. Yet, and it is a small yet, those who had put their hope in their brothers, only they were graced rather than faced with choices. It was here, fueled not by their own resolve, but rather a living hope in their relationships with each other that allowed them to keep their garments of hope rather than exchange them for chains of despair. When all else fell away, the abyss reflected back to them who they had become, where they had put their faith or their confidence of their hope and assurance of what up till that moment they could not see. Here at their weakest, no strength left at all. Those men whose object of their faith was on relationship, giving away their power, gracing one another with dignity, had a fighting chance to survive and also possibly even stare back at chaos and clothe it with its own chains, exposing just a cursory glimpse of the reality that it is indeed, as Dr. Keller puts it, not the strength of our faith that has the ability to save us, but the object of our faith. And so, as all of this would be true for us as well, these men's hopes shaped them so fully that when stripped of all their literal clothes and worldly distractions, they clothed themselves in what had been their hope all along, subsequently becoming that hope. And this makes it all the more fascinating, a buoy to my heart, if you will, to watch as those particular men who had put their living hope in their relationships, who embodied living hope, continued to dole out dignity while they became naked, empower one another while they became weak, and love each other in the midst of constant disappointment. Like a fertile seed of joy in the center of the tundra, it is in their actions we see the the chaos stripped of its own power, have its chains of despair placed on itself, and ultimately retreat in defeat? Can the terror help us see the inescapable need for hope and the dangerous life-shaping, life-giving, or life-taking power of that into which we put our hope? Again, this is just the beginning of longer and larger conversations, enjoying stories that have gone before, seeing how they become part of our pop culture, and then armed with the understanding of how they change us, having the ability to change them for the healing and the good. So give me a like, comment, share, and of course subscribe if you would like. That would be fantastic. And that's my Mundy. Now back to yours. Can AMC's The Terror, the horror of the rural juror,